we want to make sure that the Boy Scouts stay for a little while because we have a special presentation for them. But at this time, I would like to invite our newly ordained minister from the board, Marianne Sadusky, to give the invocation. I'm serious about this now.
And here's the list for you.
Okay.
Which one? Good evening. Sadly, Father Dennis from Holy Family told me this afternoon that he was unavailable to give the invocation. And so I have become a universal life minister for this occasion. But I have a great invocation. Loving God, bless all those gathered here today as we come together in friendship and fellowship. Thank you for the blessings of our individual and collective God-given gifts. Place in our hearts the desire to make a difference to our families, to our community, to our country, and to the many cultures and peoples worldwide. Give us balance in times of distraction and uncertainty. Help us move towards our goals with determination and always with an abundant sense of humor. Thank you for food in a world where many know only hunger, for our faith in a world where many know fear, for friends in a world where many know only loneliness. Please bless this food we are about to share, to Paul and his staff who prepared it and will serve it, and to Jim and Lauren who have worked to make today the special occasion that it is. For all of this, we give you thanks. Amen. I am available for weddings.
That's great. That's great. I want to ask if that person's here.
I have not seen Emil, but I have looked. I just did the end. Is anything you missed?
Okay. What happened to my? Where's my program?
My daughter is a senior in high school, and my son is in 8th grade.
Did someone take my papers with them? Did you have my papers? Yeah. I was looking for my papers to continue the program, but our newly ordained minister took them from me. And she got ordained so she could go on the cruise because we had to take a minister. Last time we went, we took a Greek Orthodox bishop, long beard, long robes, but he fell overboard. So now we have to get somebody else, and Marianne Sadusky, she's going to have to wear one of those fake beards, especially if we get off on the islands in Greece. You're going to have to bear with me because I had this thing in really good order before, and then I must have had about 30 phone calls telling me, can you add this, can you do this, can you do this, and that person died, this person is not going to make it. I said, no, nobody died. I was just kidding about that. Now we'd like to have the Boy Scouts and the leaders come forward, and we're going to have Kelly Ryan give the presentation of a check to the Boy Scouts. I think there's three groups involved, and they're leaders.
All right, Boy Scouts, come on up. I already told the speaker that you guys don't throw things until like 8:15, so we're all going to be good. While the Scouts are coming up, as you know, one of the missions of the San Marino City Club is to provide sponsors and benefits to organizations in our community. And one of the most important organizations in our community historically has been Scouts, both Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Tonight we're going to honor the Boy Scouts. Many of them are here, and from the troops that we support. And that's Troop 358. Anybody from 358? Come on down. Here's a nice big check. It looks like this. You can take this to any bank, and they will give you full exchange for that. Here, we're going to take a picture. We've got a nice media representative, and we got some guy from the Tribune. You should try to learn his name because he'll get you in the paper. All right. And then there's your real check. That one goes to the bank, all right? Spend it wisely.
You see?
Troop 359. Oh, I can't do that first. See, that was a fake. So there's lots more pictures. There's your big check. Spin it around. Get in the picture. All right. Look, he takes them even before we're set. He's trying to cut me off. We have a huge meeting.
Right here, you guys.
Okay, in the audience, you're going to vote on who your favorite troop is. So just, this is like America's Got Talent, the younger version. All right. What troop are you? Okay, then I give you the right check. All right, thanks, guys. Come on down, troop 351. Just so you know, they're not getting $900. It's the same for all. Troop 3, how many are you? All right, nice. Good job. Right like there. I'm going to photobomb just one.
Right here, you guys. Right there.
All right, nice job. Congratulations. Troop 355. We have any 355 reps? Here, you can go back in.
Just switch the check.
Hold the big check. No mistake showing up. All right.
All right, Kelly.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Kelly.
I think 355, right? Yes. Winner?
Okay. I think most of you know that Troop 351 is the troop that the San Marino City Club sponsors. And they're coming close to being to their 100th year in existence in the city. So it's wonderful to have them here and to present the Pledge of Allegiance and the colors at each of our dinner meetings. Okay, and now we have a special presentation to the girls and boys high school golf team. And it comes from the City Club. We have golf tournaments throughout the year, and sometimes we have some money left over. So this year we're going to have Tom Santley and to present the check to the San Marino. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate that. The Golf Committee made a recommendation at the board retreat to the board that we take $500 out of the Golf Committee funds and that we contribute it to both the boys and girls golf teams. And so we're giving $250 each, both to the boys and the girls team, and we have a representative of, president of the Boosters Club, and she's going to accept the money on behalf of both the boys and the girls. Fellow member of San Gabriel Country Club, and her daughter, she tells me, is the club champion for the girls. Very good. Let's welcome Jennifer Chung. Would you just quickly tell us a few things about the golf program?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this generous donation. As you know, with most things in San Marino, we rely a lot on the generosity of our parents, our community members, and this makes a big difference for our kids. We actually, this is a great time to be speaking about golf because we're just coming off of the girls' season, and they finished as co-champs of the league and went to third in CIF for their division. So we're really proud of the girls. They work hard. The boys' season starts in a couple months, and this money will go towards our off-season training program. We have a new coach, Matt Jiggins. He's a member of Annandale, so Tom and I won't hold that against him, but he's pretty fantastic, and he's sorry that he couldn't be here tonight, but he's done so much for the program. They do yoga and TPI and practice drills and things like that in the off-season, and it's just really taking the game to the next level for all the players. So we're really proud of the golf program at San Marino High School. Thank you, City Club, for your support. would invite you out to a match, but they don't let you walk on the course, so it wouldn't be that exciting. But thank you so much for your support. It means so much.
I was trying to get in the picture, but Tom said, no, it's just for golfers. Okay, at this time, I would like to introduce the past presidents of the City Club who are here in attendance. Well, the first person I'd like to introduce, and I want to congratulate him, is our member and past president, Frank Chin. He was recently elected to the Los Angeles Superior Court as a court commissioner as of January 2nd, 2019. That's great. Congratulations, Frank. Okay, we have Mortimer. He's been a member of City Club for 50 years. Bill Payne, President 1994. Bill. Ken Riley, President 1995. Al Bogues in 2010. And Al, along with Tom, ran all the golf tournaments, so, but we only took Tom up here, okay? Tom Santley again, 2004, past president. Wally Rosbaugh, 2003, past president. Eugene Sun, 2001. Is Fritz Sears here tonight? Okay. He just the ones you underlined? Yeah. I've got 4 highlighted, and they weren't even presidents. So that's okay. Peter Loeffler, where's Peter? 2012. Okay. Yeah, I saw that. Okay, I'll add it. And now I would like, I think that's all the past presidents. Did I miss anybody? Oh, wait. Dick Pearson. All right. Oh, Dick Ward. Is this supposed to be in alphabetical order? I'm using the Greek alphabet, and we missed him. Dick Ward. 1989. Thank you very much. I don't think I missed anybody else, but you know what's special about the past presidents is they attend, they support the board and the directors, and we had our desert retreat in January 4th to the 6th this January, and we had 17 past presidents attending. And of that group, Dick Ward was the president from 1989 and all the way up. And there was a few that could not make it, but they sent cards saying they were on vacations, and I said they should have canceled it and been to the retreat. One went to a wedding in India, and I tried to move the wedding to La Quinta, but it didn't work. Okay. We have some city council officials. Susan Jakubowski. I saw her. Thank you, Susan. I thought I saw. Okay. We have our police chief here, John Incontro. I I know he was here because I saw him, and so I think maybe he had to leave or something happened. But and we have the city manager, Marcella Marlowe. I know she was here too. I think I've scared 3 people away already, and we haven't got started. San Marino School Board member, Corey Barbary, a new member of our community, a new board member, welcome. Chris Norgard, school board meeting, vice president. Shelley Ryan, board in the back there. And now we also have from our new directors from the City Club, Stephen Choi, who's Chief Technical Officer in the City of San Marino. San Marino School District, I'm sorry. And obviously we have our own Lauren Kleinrock. He's the interim superintendent. I think everyone here has had some kids or grandkids gone through the school system with Lauren Kleinrock, and so everybody's touched bases with him. He's been great for the community. Now, I think I got everybody. Oh, there was down. I didn't have it down there. What's his name? Our fire chief. What's his name? I'm sorry, I didn't see him here, and they didn't mark him off. Is he sneaking in again? Okay. So if I missed anybody, please stand. Okay. You know what I'd like to do this too is to introduce our new San Marino board and directors. Because these are the people that do all the work to get these dinners set up. First vice president is Lauren Kleinrock. He's in charge of speakers this year. Second vice president is Kelly Ryan. He's in the back. Isaac Hong, who's I don't believe is here. He's our new secretary. Robert Houston is our treasurer, who does a great job. And he volunteers as treasurers for a lot of organizations in San Marino. I tried to get him to volunteer to do my books, but he said it was too complicated. And our immediate past president is Dick Pearson. I'll introduce the new directors that have been elected for 2 years. Paul Lacon, he's going to be working on arrangements. In communication, we have Stephen Choi, who I introduced as. And membership, Robert Tam. Where is he? Oh, there he is, over here. And social committee is Joel Gorman. Right over there. Serving her second year as arrangements is Marianne Sadusky. And then you might be able to see her on TV. She has one of those worldwide tele-minister things. And if you send $12, we'll give you a statue. No, I'm just kidding. Larry Yang, Communications. I think the last time I talked to him, he was in Taipei or something like that. And then Chuck Patterson, social chairman. The reason I'm taking so long is we don't have dinner tonight, so so I think we got everybody. You know, Marianne gave me the list of people who are coming, and she said she found there's a person that's been a member for 10 years, serving her anniversary, Marlene Evans. Is she here? Okay. A 20-year member is Chris Norgard. A 30-year member, these are the decades we're going through, John McClure. Is he here? Yeah. 40-year member are two past presidents, Dick Pearson and Dick Ward. And I introduced Mort before as a 50-year member. Stand up, Mort. You don't look over 45. Okay, at this time I think we'll have dinner, then we'll come back for another 3 hours. Okay, now, we don't have numbers on the tables, but we're going to start with this row first. And then this row, and that row. What?
Don't forget the head table.
And the head table. You can continue eating your dinner or on dessert, but we want to try to stay on time. So at this time, I would like to invite the membership chairman, Robert Tam, to introduce new members for the City Club. Robert Tam is a new director, and he and his wife attended the Desert Retreat, and we're really very happy to have him on as a board member, along with Stephen Choi. Thank you. Robert?
Thank you, Mr. President. So at this time, for this brand new year, we'd like to invite 3 new members. So first, would Corey Barbary come up? Yeah. So can I talk, is this thing on?
Be right there. Yeah.
Is that one on?
No, I think, check that, but I think it's better to use this if you want.
So let me tell you a little bit about Corey. Corey was born in Torrance, California. He attended San Diego State and has a degree in accounting. Louder, okay. Corey also has an MBA from that school that won the Rose Bowl a few years ago. USC. He's been married for 11 years to Jennifer Barbary. Is she here? Corey has also lived in Amsterdam, and he's active in his church, and he loves to travel, and he works at Paramount Pictures as Vice President of Financial Controller. So please welcome Corey Barbary. Our next member is Michael Kalaki. Michael, could you come up? Michael is an attorney with the Kalaki Law Office. Michael was born in Downey, California, and he was raised in El Monte, California. He went to Arroyo High School nearby and went to UC Santa Barbara, majoring in sociology and business economics. He also went to law school at Loyola Law School, and he practices law and in personal injury and criminal defense. He has 2 boys, a 4th grader at Valentine and a 7th grader at Huntington, and he's married to Stephanie. Please welcome Michael Kalaki. Our final member tonight is Noor Chiali. Noor, could you come up? Noor is a doctor, and she's a dermatologist at the Caliber Dermatology Center. She went to Arcadia High School. She then went on to Johns Hopkins. And finally, she went to a little-known school called Harvard. Harvard Medical School. She trained in dermatology, and she also trained at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. She's practiced in different states, and she's lived in San Marino for the last 2 years. She loves to travel and is happy to be back in her home area of San Marino. Please welcome Noor Shah.
Thank you, Robert, and welcome to the new members. It's always nice to have new people come in and get involved, although all three of these new members are active in our community. At this time, I would like to have our social chairman, Chuck Patterson, and our other social chairman, Joe Gorman. Chuck will come up and talk about the San Marino City Club. You have a flyer on your table, the dinner dance. So Chuck will give you a little more information on that.
Well, this is the social event of the year for the club, so I expect you all to attend. We last year we held it in the last week in February, and I thought that was a little close to Valentine's Day. You might have had to come up with some money for special events on Valentine's Day, so I moved it a week later than before. So we're the second day now in March, and it's again at the San Gabriel Country Club. And again, the price is the same, $120 per person. However, we do not have a band. We have a DJ, and we also have a pianist who plays for the social hour that precedes the dinner. They were both well received last year, and we were able to get the same people again for this year. Of course, we do not have valet parking, but there's parking available easily at San Gabriel Country Club, so that's not an issue for you. So we'd like you to come. Many years we've averaged well over 100 guests. We were a little bit below that this last year, but we want to get back above 100. So let's see you on March 2nd. Oh, and if it is a success, my email is in the book, and if it's not, Joe Gorman is sitting over there. So, all right.
Thank you, Chuck. I think everyone who attended last year had a great time. The food was excellent, and there was a lot of members dancing. And so hopefully we'll see a lot of you there. It'll be a much nicer event the more people we have. Now, we have two people that we're going to have a short 5-minute update on. And our first is Nam Jack, who most of you know. She served as a school board member for the past 2 terms for 8 years. She's involved in almost everything that goes on in San Marino. She volunteers for everything. Now she's in charge of the update on the parcel tax, so she'll give us some information. Nam Jack.
I could do this.
Yeah, you can put that on.
Stephen?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's,
Mine on.
oh, I'm
I'll
sorry.
take this off. Well, it's that, if you can put it on top, that's
Okay, no.
okay.
I'm sorry. Usually I wear high heels, but it's raining outside, so I had to wear flat plastic shoes. So I apologize if you cannot see me. Thank you to City Club. Thank you, Jim, for having me here. As You know, I am a former school board member, and both my children attended San Marino schools, and the schools provided my children, and hopefully all of your children, with fantastic, wonderful, nurturing education. My son graduated from Occidental, and my daughter attends Brown University right now. Even though I am no longer a parent in the school district, I am passionate about San Marino. So, I wanted to let you know about an exciting opportunity where you can help our schools, our students, your property values, our community for only $1 a day. It is Measure R, which is up for renewal by way of a mail ballot election on February 26, 2019. I always ask myself, what are the, numbers or letters, that correspond with the ballot measure? So, Measure R, that R stands for renewal. So it is not a new tax. It has been in place since 1991 and has been overwhelmingly approved by the voters ever since. So, certain questions, and I have answers. What does Measure R support? It provides critical local funding for 13.40 instructional positions and provides the district $1.6 million annually. Those funds support core education and academic programs, retains our best teachers and counselors, and maintains reduced class sizes. What does it cost? It really does cost $1 a day. The current assessment is $366.40. So if you divide that by 365 days, although my daughter told me it should be 365.4 because of leap year, it comes out to $1 a day. Are there exemptions? Yes, there are. Measure R offers exemptions to seniors, homeowners with disabilities, and contiguous parcels. If you are a senior, you only have to get the exemption once, and it applies throughout the term. How long does it last? It lasts for 6 years. Measure R funds stay local. All of the money stay and are used for San Marino schools. The state cannot take it away. Funds cannot be used for administration. Sorry, Lauren.
What else is new?
Every penny goes directly to classroom instruction. So what does Measure R do for all of us? First, I think it keeps certain of the City Club members happy, which would be Lauren, which would be Chris, which would be Shelley, which would be Corey. So if you could keep them happy, that would be great, as well as our Chief Technology Officer, Stephen Choi. But from a global viewpoint, and I'm really being serious, good schools help keep our property values high and maintain the quality of life in our community. So I am hoping, I am pleading, I am begging for you to vote yes on Measure R, which means a vote for our children, our property values, and our future. So I thank you very much for your time. If you have any more questions, I have left flyers on the table. Thank you again for everything, and thank you for your vote, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Nam. Looking at this group, there's nobody that's going to be exempt because there's nobody over 65 that I can see. So we should be 100% participation. Thank you for a very informative presentation on the parcel tax. I think we're going to have Joe Gorman come up, and he's a tax lawyer, to figure out how we're going to use that deduction, but I think we can. Okay. Oh.
This law is a crazy one. It takes 66 2/3 to win.
Oh.
So be sure to vote, because so many, that's a very hard bar to cross. And even if you're over 65 and choose to be exempt, that's one thing. But you gotta vote yes, otherwise it can come in under 66 to be heard.
I love you.
Good point.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay. We have another update by a member of the community, Ann Broussard. She is the president and director of East Meets West Parents Educational Club, and she will give an update on the up-and-coming annual Chinese Lunar New Year Gala 2019. Ann? Thank you. You can make the stuff out of the way.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Warren, for having me here. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year. This is the first page. I'm Annie Broussard. I'm the founder and the president of East Meets West Parent Education Club. I like to use photos so everybody can see better. This is our club, Parent Education Club, and our board directors. And many of our members are, actually most of members are in San Marino. We are located in San Marino. We're serving the greater San Gabriel Valley area, but most of our members are San Marino residents. As you can see, Isaac Hum and Susan Jakowski and many more are serving at the board and the members. What we do is, number one, we do provide positive parenting to the local community, youth leadership by sending our children to senior center for holiday concerts with emphasis of technology announcement. And this is the study we did at JPL in summer. And most important, because we are a service-oriented organization, we serve homeless many areas in Pasadena, Irwindale, and the local. Yeah. And exciting things is about after New Year's, we are now a recipient of the President Volunteer Service Award organization, which means the student in our organization, they earn the volunteer hours, they can get award from our president. Yeah. So, and fun thing is we do a lot of cross-cultural activities. This is one of our annual event, Chinese New Year's. This is actually last year, and then the middle person is our Congresswoman Judy Chu. So this is the flyer for our February 10, next month, the gala. The flyer is on the table. And this is the brochure of our East Meets West Parent Education Club, also on the table. Please bring that with you, and all the information is on the website. The reason we like to continue this annual event is we want to support our community. Last year, we raised the fund to support the earthquake relief in Taiwan. Hualien happened January 2018. And this year, we all agreed that to support the fire in California. The reason we want to do that is because people in the disaster area, they didn't have New Year holiday, they didn't have Christmas, happy family time together. We wanted to take advantage of the Chinese New Year holiday coming up to invite people come over, and we treat them free lunch, brunch, and we also every other week we have driver. We collaborate with local church. We send items they needed to Paradise, California. And right now we are collecting many items. And for this event, our Congresswoman, Dr. Judy Chu, has confirmed for her attendance. And exciting news again is our city mayor, new city mayor, Dr. Stephen Huang, will be our keynote speaker, sharing about his stories growing up in San Marino. It's very inspiring. And again, this is the picture 2017, we had a Chinese New Year, and many children. It's a family nonprofit organization. We include everybody. Everybody's included. And again, the purpose of this gala is to support the fire relief. And I hope you save the date and purchase tickets online. And if you have items to donate, definitely visit our website. And our next truck going to Paradise is this coming Sunday. And again, this is the New Year Gala program you have on the table. Very interesting program we have. This year we have more cross-cultural entertainment, including the Korean dancer, because Korean, they also celebrate Lunar New Year. We have lion dance, and many more. The food is going to be delicious holiday buffet at El Manso Court, starting 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And we have lots of fun raffles and live auctions. One of the items we just received this week was a Gucci bag, new Gucci bag, with a value of over 10,000. If you come, you can, ladies, make sure you come to buy the raffle to win this Gucci bag. And today, I just got a news. Actually, it's not on this slideshow, it's on my cell phone. A famous artist from China, Beijing, he just shipped his very, very valuable artwork painting from Beijing. Value, it was, he told me it's about 5,000. The true value is going to be times 10, 50,000. So we just got this painting, and it's going to be all donated to this fire relief. And that's it. And another thing is that I just submit my application to be the member of City Club. Yeah. And thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie, for the presentation. I didn't realize some of the organizations, and it's nice to inform the membership here and people in the city. So if you can support it, you pick up the flyer, and I think you'll have a nice evening there. I want to thank both the presenters, Nam Jack and Annie Broussard, for your presentations this evening. At this time, I'm very pleased to introduce our first Vice President, Lauren Kleinrock, who will do the introduction of this evening's guest speaker. Lauren.
Okay, I really try not to have to compliment Mitch Lehman. I find myself having to do that, but actually, Mitch is responsible for our speaker tonight. He was the one who told me about him. And by the way, we kind of rely on you folks, if you know people that would be good, that you think people would like to hear at the club, to provide that. Dr. William Deverell is a historian of American West and a professor of history at USC, where he directs the Huntington USC Institute of California and the West. He was a former chair of the Department of History at Dornsife College of Arts and Sciences, which is actually the oldest school at SC. It began when USC began. Sorry, guys. Little short on a resume in terms of the educational stuff. He earned his AB degree in American Studies from Stanford in 1983. 85, he earned his Master of Arts from Princeton. 89, he completed his doctorate at Princeton. He's written several books, a number of books actually, on political, social, ethnic, and environmental history. And his graduate students at SC work on a variety of topics, history about the history of the West, ranging from the West's racial and ethnic and environmental history, to the rise of conservative politics in the Southwest and the Western U.S. connections to the Pacific Rim. So he covers the waterfront in some ways. He was a postdoctoral, there's a few other things he did educationally. Postdoctoral instructor of American history at the Huntington Library from 1988 to 1990. Another tie to the Huntington is the Fletcher Jones Foundation Fellow at the library. 2009-10, he was the Beinecke, is that how it's pronounced? Okay. The Beinecke Senior Fellow in Western America Americana at Yale University. He's also had fellowships at the Center for Advanced Study in Behavioral Sciences. I asked him, how does that fit in with the rest of this stuff? And he said, well, there's history of behavioral sciences, and so that's part of it. And the Getty Research Institute. His recent books include something called Whitewashed Adobe, which is the rise of Los Angeles and the remaking of its Mexican past, which examines the historical relationship between the growth of Los Angeles and Southern California's complex history of racial and ethnic conflict and accommodations. So, this talk tonight, as you know, is going to be about Kathy Fiscus. Now, when I got to San Marino in '75, I didn't know from Kathy Fiscus, and after I was there a little bit, kind of name came up, and then I got to know the story a little bit. But the interesting to me was one year, I think Paul Crowley was actually the one that led the effort. They were trying to put a plaque up where the well was that poor Kathy had fallen down. Nobody really knew where that site was, and they looked around, and I think they finally settled up on what is now the upper field by the tree there, and they put the plaque there. But I've hence heard a couple of different locations where people say, no, it wasn't there. So I'm actually looking at Bill tonight to see if he can solve that mystery based on his research, where that well was, and tell us the whole story that went on. And I think it's fascinating that this is going on and it's captured. I mean, there's a lot of people here tonight, and I wasn't sure what the rain would do, but it's a topic that's obviously still on the minds of the community, and this is the guy that knows more about this than apparently anybody else alive. So, Dr. Devereaux.
Thank you so much, Lauren, and my thanks to Mitch as well. Thanks to you all for braving the rain. I have spent my career in education, and I can spot a gifted and experienced educator. And so sitting with Lauren tonight, it's been a real pleasure. I really am grateful.
He does have high standards beside that.
I've spoken about this event to a number of crowds. I've never spoken to a crowd that likely knows as much as you do. A lot of people here, I suspect, are quite familiar with this story. And I'd love to hear from you. There's a lot of misinformation about the event. I think I've pieced together more or less what happened. I'm challenged with trying to explain its meaning and power, but we'll get there, I think, as I move through this talk. I want to start with three chronological data points that kind of triangulate my own interest in this as a father and an historian and a Southern Californian. And there are three chronological data points that are spread out about the entirety of the 20th century. The first one is 1903, when a man whom we don't know anything about yet, named C.C. Johnson, either paid for or bored a well into the Raymond Aquifer, right now where the San Marino High School track and football field is. That's the origin of this story, at least in its well capacity. The well was 14 inches in diameter. So as I say in my writings, about a medium pizza. Okay, very tiny. The second data point is the morning of April 8th, 1949, when Alice Fiscus, the mother of Kathy Fiscus, took her children down to what was then only 10 years old Union Station to pick up her visiting sister and her sister's children, who were spending the weekend with the Fiscuses here in San Marino. Alice Fiscus had recently undergone some surgery, and she was recuperating and convalescing, and under her doctor's orders, her 3-year-old child, Kathy, was not to be carried in her mother's arms for a period of several months. However, on that morning of April 8th, 1949, something in the train station startled Kathy, and she leapt into her mother's arms, and Alice Fiscus held her and calmed her in her fright. That's our second data point. The third data point is about a decade ago, when my own daughter, Helen, who was 8 at the time, was assigned a task by her obsessed historian father. And that was simply to get a piece of construction paper and put the cardinal points of a compass around it, and then make a circle out of that, 14 inches in diameter, cut it out, and tape it to the carpet of our living room, the rug in our living room, so I could see the size of it. And I can remember the moment as if it was yesterday that I actually gasped to see how narrow the mouth of that well bored by Mr. Johnson a century plus earlier was. So I'd like you to keep those in mind as I move through this talk. After picking up her sister and her sister's children on that Friday, April 8th, 1949, Easter time, Alice Fiscus drove the family back to the Fiscus family home, just really adjacent to that upper field that Lauren mentioned. The house is no longer there. Kathy and her cousins, Gus and Stanley, and her sister Barbara, whose name I've heard here several times tonight. I've been fortunate to speak with Barbara about my project. The 4 children and the family dog Jeepers, who they called Jeep, who was a fox terrier, went outside in the field adjacent to the house, essentially that field that now accompanies the upper athletic field of the high school and drifting down towards what are now the athletic fields, or the track and the tennis courts. The Fiscus home was at 2590 Robles Avenue. It was a small white, or some people say yellow cottage, right next to the field. Alice and her sister were preparing dinner for that evening and could look outside the kitchen window to the field, which was quite a large 6-acre field, and watch the children playing, as they often did, together. And Kathy and her sister Barbara were excited to have their boy cousins visit. I could see the children out back playing, Alice remembered, just running as they do. Kathy was 3.5 and she lagged behind. Here she is here with Barbara. Everyone see that okay? Yeah, you could put the lights down if it helps. The imagery of this project is just stunning. And a lot of folks have photographs that have never been published before, and I've been able to find actually a great many photographs on eBay. And for reasons unknown to me, Canadian eBay. Go figure. Kathy lagged behind her sister and her cousins. The dog played with the older kids. And suddenly Kathy wasn't there. Her mother and her aunt saw the other children running towards the house, but Kathy wasn't with them. Her mother, Alice, went out to the field and asked the older children, "Where's Kathy?" And no one knew. They called for her. Alice, thinking that Kathy had wandered off south towards what was then Carver, the new school, got in the car and drove over to Carver because Kathy liked the swing sets there. But she wasn't there. Alice came back to the house and they all returned to the backyard, to the field, and little Gus, who was 5, heard Kathy crying. She had fallen down the Johnson well. Alice, her sister, and her brother-in-law tried to figure out how far down the well went. They lowered a length of telephone cord into the well that a neighbor brought out, and Kathy couldn't hold on to it, although she was conscious and crying and screaming from down below. It was clear to Alice and to her sister and to the neighbor that the well was, of course, very, very deep. Kathy had fallen a long ways. The original well was dug to a depth of between 500 and 700 feet. Firemen and police were quickly summoned. I've seen the log of the call that the San Marino PD got, which essentially says, at dusk on that Friday, little girl in a well. San Marino Police Department is where it is now, and it was a quick jump up there to the site. Along with Kathy's mother, they called down to the little girl, and she answered them faintly. She was crying. "Can you hear me, Kathy?" her mother said. "Are you standing up, Kathy?" She answered that yes, she could hear them, and yes, she was standing up. But her mother also said, "Are you lying down, Kathy?" And the little girl answered, yes, she was. Pasadena Fire Department was summoned because they had a brand new, big and efficient rescue truck. So the Pasadena Fire Department showed up, and an attempt was made to lower ropes down to Kathy, to have her lift her arms over her head inside the well casing, and the rope was lassoed into a noose shape, loop, and she was to lower that around her torso, and they would tighten it and pull her up. She clearly had some difficulty doing that for obvious reasons of terror and the tight space. And the firemen and first responders were quite nervous about the danger inherent in doing that kind of technique to lift a little girl out of the well. They lowered a rubber ball on a steel tape measure, and determined that Kathy was nearly 90 feet below them. So she'd fallen 9 stories down this tiny well casing. The ball came up dry, which was good news. She had fallen presumably below the water, above the water table, even though when the well was dug by Johnson in 1903, he hit water at 7 feet. It shows you the depletion of the aquifer, or at least the waxing and waning of the aquifer over that approximately 45 years. Time went by. 2 rescue plans were set into motion as people arrived on scene. One aimed to dig down to Kathy in a parallel shaft next to the well casing, right next door, or within several feet of it, and then tunnel across and open up her old well casing, drag her out, pull her across to the tunnel, and lift her back up through the hole that had been dug. The other focused, as darkness came, on getting someone down her well to pull her up and out the way she had gone in. Difficult, to say the least, given that size of that casing, and also, presumably, that would-be rescuer would have to be lowered by their ankles down to grab her and then hauled back up 9 stories to the surface of the earth. Both approaches were marked by increasingly frantic behavior, not least because Kathy's cries and her shouting and screaming ceased within about an hour. So just after dusk, as darkness began to fall that Friday night. Her mother said that later she and her husband simply hoped that their presence up top and their voice soothing or attempting to soothe their daughter did do that, and they hoped that Kathy had simply drifted off to sleep, much like a scared child in a darkened room would eventually drop off. Of the 2 plans, the odder one is the someone needs to go down that casing and get her. Accordingly, rescuers put out a call for tiny men or skinny men or children to lower them down the well head first so they might grab her and pull her up. Jockeys were recruited from Santa Anita. A call went out to the circus that sent the thin man to the site. Calls supposedly went out to Hollywood for someone affected with dwarfism, because this is in the era where The Wizard of Oz made little people cinematically famous. A call went out as well, I was told, and I was skeptical of it, for this man. Let me see if I can get this. Let me just show you quickly a couple pictures and I'll show you this man. These are the older children as the rescue is underway. The little guy there is Gus, Stanley in the middle, Jeepers, the dog, and Barbara. Very early in the rescue attempt, this is Kathy's aunt with her back to us and rescuers, and the telltale anxiety on the face of the man in the background is clear. And then a call had gone out to this man. The photo's a little dark, but you actually can't really see him. But standing adjacent to the woman is the Philip Morris call boy, Johnny Roventini, who was a little person who wore a bellhop uniform, familiar to many of you in the room, I think, who at intermissions and then cinematically and in commercials and in print would put out call for Philip Morris to sell cigarettes in a bellhop's uniform. He showed up on site at the well in his bellhop uniform. David Fiscus, Kathy's father, at the site, refused to let anyone go down. So one of the mythical stories of this tragedy is that actual jockeys did go down. They didn't. Who goes down are the rescuers, or would-be rescuers, who dig their way down. No one is lowered down Kathy's well casing because her father and a number of the rescuers there won't allow it because they know how dangerous that would be. As Friday night deepened, the plan to dig her out became paramount. Even so, other rescue ideas poured into the San Marino Police Department, the Pasadena Police Department, the Los Angeles Police Department by telegraph and phone call from all over, increasingly as the word went out, from all over the United States and even abroad. Most of the ideas that I've become familiar with are crazy. A local physician here in town proposed that a vacuum be created in the well so that Kathy could be sucked up to freedom. I don't know how you would pull that off. Someone else proposed that water could be slowly poured into the well and she would float to the top. Another changed the feature of that and said, don't use water, pour sand in the well. And she can rise above as the sand comes up in the hourglass that her well would have become. Thankfully, none of the rescuers and the lines of authority at the site took them up on any of those attempts. But that these notions were even posited or much less considered, along with the Hollywood and circus performers and the jockeys, it just shows an indication of the feverish nature of the rescue effort and its inherent challenges. The digging operation proceeded in earnest right next to the well. That site, I'll show you exactly where I think that site is, near what's now the football field and tennis courts. Clamshell and dragline diggers, big digging equipment, was brought in by police escort up the 110 freeway at a certain point from a site elsewhere, and they were rolled onto the field to begin a large digging operation. The key thing to keep in mind here is that once the plan to go down her well casing to get her is discarded, what then happens is 2 dig-to-get-her plans are launched of very different capacity. One is get the big equipment there on site and dig a giant rescue cavern, lower the rescuers by harness, craned harness, down that cavern, and cut across to her well. So I'll show you the site, the scene, and it looks every bit as much like a copper mine, the digging operation. The other one, which is the point of some dispute at the site, included a much more modest hole in the ground dug by septic tank and sewer and earthwork diggers who showed up at the site and said the big equipment was a mistake. It could rattle her down lower into her well casing. It took too much time. Why dig a cavernous hole in the ground when those diggers, the septic tank diggers, knew how to dig a hole of a reasonable diameter much quicker? So 2 holes are started, which in essence wastes a great deal of time. And the big hole, as it were, collapses on itself, and time is lost there, and then by eventually 24 hours into the rescue scene, the little hole is the one that is chosen as the most likely way to get her. Now that hole has a diameter of 24 inches, so a good healthy 10 inches wider, but yet that's a big pizza, still narrow. And that hole is lined with metal casing, one pipe at a time, hammered down with pile hammers, hammered down the hole, and then welded, the next one welded on top to protect the rescuers inside that casing, who would get down to Kathy's level, or ideally just below it, 92, 94 feet, and then very, very dangerously begin to dig a tunnel across to where her well casing was, somehow open that up and get her. I was fortunate enough to interview a number of these rescuers as this project took place, and I asked one of these men who it was partly his idea to dig the smaller one. I said, were you ever scared? And he said, no, I had dug holes my life. I was not scared to dig a hole. What scared me was the tunnel, because then the earth is on top of me, and as I emerged from the casing that protected me and began to dig the tunnel, I was digging in mud, not dirt. So they've hit the table, or very close to the table. Firemen on the scene lowered air hoses down to Kathy's level to supply her with oxygen. This was set up with a hand crank machine that was tended throughout the night on Friday night, and then intermittently across all of Saturday, into Saturday night, into the wee hours of Sunday morning, and through the first 2/3 of Sunday. A number of people disputed the efficacy of this and said, she's in a hole that's open at the top. There is air circulation. It's not great, but you don't really need to circulate the air down there. That's not what her problem is. Her problem is she's got a bigger problem than that. Workers tried to lower cameras down several times, motion picture cameras and still picture cameras, with flash bulbs, tried to take a picture to see where she was, but none of those operations worked. There are microphones lowered down in some of the rescue shaft attempts to hear the workers, which causes some consternation up on top as the hole, both the cavern one and the smaller one, get further and further down. The workers run into trouble down there. Sometimes the walls of the big cavern collapse on them, and they begin to curse on the amplified microphone to the assembled crowd that's come to watch, which has swelled by Saturday evening to, the estimates are wildly inconsistent. I would say at least 5,000 people, perhaps as many as 10,000, who are fenced off from the rescue scene in a series of fenced arenas that include the press, and then officials, and then the general public. The general public is utterly fascinated by this event. People bring their children by the dozens. There is some food and hot coffee and tea sales that go on by rescue workers, Red Cross folks, etc. The mood of the crowd is, as you might imagine, very somber. There are prayer circles, people sing hymns, and a number of individuals clasp hands and weep at the scene. Cars began to line up in Huntington Drive and fill the nearby streets. Studios from Hollywood donate their Klieg lights to light up the rescue scene as if it was a movie premiere, to keep the rescue work going on. For all intents and purposes, the rescue lasts 48 hours. From darkness on Friday until later darkness on Sunday, 48 plus. Here's the scene, an aerial photograph. That little adobe is still on the property of San Marino High. And then the work in trying to identify the actual well has been the most interesting part of this project over the last 6 months. That's been a challenge, not least because of what Lauren mentioned. People put the well in different places. It's important for me to find it. Many of you, particularly the locals here, recognize that the water and irrigation history of this part of the San Gabriel Valley atop the Raymond Aquifer is dotted with wells. There are a lot of wells, and there are a lot of wells right where the Kathy Fiscus well is. Each one of those numbers is a well laid atop a georeference Google map of the site. The well that Kathy falls in, do you see the number 4 at the bottom? Just above the number 4 to your left is 123B. Let me think if that's it. I've lost track of my numbers here. It's either 122 or 123B. We'll figure it out in a second. And then if you lay this on top of it, you see the San Marino football field with the rust-colored track surrounding it. We've pinpointed the well. The well is not under the tennis courts. It's under the very edge of the western end zone of the football field and leaning in towards that inner lane of the track. And then the last geopositioned piece is really great. These are photographs from the scene, aerial, and then they are positioned correctly on the map, on the Google map of contemporary San Marino by the high school, and there's the well right at the center in the yellow dot. So we found the Johnson well. I've got the history of it, the various stratifications of the earth they found. I had a hunch that the well had been, at one point, I actually thought Henry Huntington Land and Improvement Company had dug the well. They didn't, it's too early for them, but they did buy it. So Mr. Huntington and the Huntington Land Improvement owned it as he gobbled up water and land companies here in the San Gabriel Valley, and then eventually he sold it. And then the irony upon ironies, Kathy Fiscus's father worked for the California Water and Telephone Company, and he was superintendent of the field in which the well that Kathy fell into was located. It's possible that the field had recently been sold to the Masons. That's a rumor I can't quite track down, but nonetheless, David Fiscus knew that well. It had been capped, but the cap had fallen off. And children in the neighborhood did say after the Fiscus event, they knew that well was there, they knew it was uncapped, and they liked to throw rocks down it. The photographs of the scene are very somber. One thing's clear, by definition, but also just by visage here. This is the late 40s. The 1950s haven't happened yet. This is not rock and roll America. This is a different America. It's countrified. People are in their dungarees, and they come by the thousands to witness this event. They climb the trees. They line these rope barriers to keep them away from the rescue scene. There's the pipes that become the casing of the rescue shaft there at your right. And then television comes. The story's gotten a great deal of attention because of its role in the rise of early television, and it's perfectly appropriate. There had been filmed television news events, one, prior to this. An iron plating plant blew up in 1947 on Pico Boulevard in LA, and television cameras went there and filmed it. But this is the one that invents news television. It's the first reality TV show in America. They film within 24 hours, they're there, and they stay for 24 hours on air. KKTV and KTLA. It launches the career of Stan Chambers, which many of you in the room know, who's a Cub reporter at that point. They film the rescue scene. It's really quite banal because what they're filming is generally an empty, a well site, and the rescuers are below them. So they're waiting for news, waiting for news, waiting for news. But it does arrest the curiosity of the public, and then the newsreels are sent around the world. Local television is broadcast because they can aim their cameras right at Mount Wilson where they got a transmitter. So they aim them right up there. And they broadcast to about 20,000 television sets in the spring of 1949 in the local arena, which leaps to about 300,000 within a couple years because of this event. Television had been seen more or less as a Kukla, Fran, and Ollie parlor toy for your children, and it becomes newsworthy. And this is the event that does it. A Cub, actually not even a reporter, a photographic filer for the LA Times named Lee Weiner, who's 19 years old, shows up along with all other kinds of press, radio, TV, photography. And Lee Weiner takes a set of brilliant photographs of the scene where most photographers are focused on the rescue attempt. Weiner wanders around the Fiscus property and he takes a picture of their house. There are multiple vigils going on while the rescue happens. Alice Fiscus sits in the family sedan. Her parents come up from Chula Vista. They sit with her. Neighbors come sit with her. Dave Fiscus wanders the scene of the rescue attempt, chain smoking and muttering over and over, "What can I say? What can I say? What can I say?" People come and sit with them. They sit on the porch of the back of the house. There they are in vigil. That's Dave and Alice Fiscus. Here's the rescue scene of the big caverns. You can see the level of equipment that's brought in. A number of structural engineers, civil engineers. There's a little jockeying for authority on the site, but eventually a man named Raymond Hill, an engineer, takes charge of the rescue attempt. There's the cavern that they dig, and they're going to lower those guys down by cabled contraption to get next to her well and bust it open until they abandon that. And this will really tell the story. That's not a copper mine, that's the Kathy Fiscus rescue scene. By late Sunday, my theory is that the rescuers actually knew her fate because they knew their way around the earth in this way. But the courage they exhibit, which is prodigious, included on their part an absolute necessity to retrieve her. So it gets very moving and powerful for them. They're utterly exhausted. And by the late evening on Sunday, April 10th, her body is discovered at the bottom of the well, not 700 feet, about 90 feet down. She's wedged in there. The rescuer who got to her first said to me that she was soaking wet. She is dressed in, one of the rescuers there, the man in the center of this picture, changes her into a blue romper, and her body is encased in that blanket there, and it takes them several hours to bring her up because it's very slow, painstaking work. The family physician there on scene, there are two family physicians there. One is deputized to go down and declare, to determine if she has indeed died. He's claustrophobic, and he has no interest in going down there. But the man in the center there, a guy named Bill Yancey, slugged him, knocked him woozy, and they lowered him down. Yeah. So at the retrieval of the body, the other family physician right here, a familiar name probably to some of you in the room, Dr. Paul Hansen, he makes a brief announcement. That's Bill Welsh, the newsman there with the glasses, who broadcasts with Stan Chambers. Dr. Hansen announces a very brief note to the assembled public that Kathy's not coming home. And could they respectfully disassemble and leave? Which they do. And then he says that he went and told the parents, but they already knew. Couple of things happen immediately or fairly quickly. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of dollars roll in from around the world for the rescuers. And a very complicated algorithmic scheme is launched to pay them on the basis of how much time they spent beneath the surface of the earth, the most dangerous work. And they were distributed a fair amount of money. One of the men who I got to know quite well bought a brand new car. Very interesting response from the world. And letter upon thousands of letters arrived for the Fiscus family. The photographer, Lee Weiner, took a picture of her swing. Sorry, I've loaded in there backwards, but you get the point. And then a year later, to the day, Lee Weiner went back and took a picture of her swing, which has lost its board. Incredibly poignant photograph. The Fiscus event was chosen as one of the most photographically memorable events of 1949 by the New York Times, up against things like atomic tests. The scale is just remarkable of its impact. Now, in some respects, back to my own daughter thinking about this with me and through me, and my job as an historian to put things together in sequence and correctly, I think I can do that. I think I can peel away a lot of the misinformation. This is just a thumbnail of the detail of the event. But in terms of coming up with its meaning, that's tougher. It's a powerful event in the psyche. It raises all kinds of, for me at least, I've never had a project that's arrested or captivated me in an obsessive quality of both head and heart. I write history books for a living. I've never quite tackled one like this, but it's because it won't let me go. It raises existential questions for me about the fate of children in our society, the fate of the most vulnerable. It's immensely ironic to me that I stand in front of you today when the Spanish authorities are looking for the little boy who fell down a well, 100 meters down a well, smaller even. I go back to trying to remember this little girl and what she meant to Americans. I go back to all the other children whose names and faces are in the newspapers of the day, who have horrible and tragic fates befall them by accident, who don't get this kind of attention for reasons that are not entirely clear to me. I do try to wring some meaning for this in a very, very unusual way that kind of hit me one night as to test it. Kathy Fiscus is, even in death, the American baby boom. She's born in 1946. She's, in a sense, the baby boomer, which renders the moment even more tragic to me. As the United States comes home from the war. And that sense of optimism is buoying Southern California, maybe in particular. The given name Kathy, her name was Catherine, but she was known as Kathy. The given name Kathy for American girls in the 1940s is number on the tree, on the sequence of how popular it is. It's number 88. It's not a popular given name. By the early 1950s, as the baby boom is under full swing, and the number of little girls born in America skyrockets alongside boys, by 1952, 51, 52, the given name Kathy is now the 22nd most popular name amongst American girls. No other girl's name does that. They move up a space, they move down 2 spaces, they stay put. It leapfrogs above. Many a woman wrote to Kathy's mom and said, I'm naming my child after you, after your daughter. I have a child, I'm changing my daughter's name. She was given this name and I'm changing it to Kathy. As I sit and ponder all this, I can try to get some meaning out of that. It's a profoundly interesting fact, but I can try to get some meaning out of it to try to make sense of, I think, something that's unsense-makeable, the loss of this child. But maybe in the given name attachment of memory and honor for this little girl, as well as the respect for the dignity of her that was shown by the workers who risked everything to go retrieve her, maybe there's some modicum of love, affection, and security gracing those young children who carried her name well into our period. I've met a number of women who say, I was named for her. So that's an odd way, in a sense, for an historian to end a story, to try to wring existential and emotional meaning from something, but that's what I got to do. So thank you very much for your attention. There's the statistic on that. And I'd be happy to take a couple of questions before we let you all brave the rain and go home. Thank you for your really rapt attention. I'm grateful. Ava.
Bill, you had mentioned just a few moments ago having had some contact with her older sister, Barbara. And I was wondering if you could share.
Sure. I've spoken to Barbara, and the question is contact with the family members, particularly her older sister, Barbara. Barbara was fairly difficult to track down because of married name changes, but I found her. She may be in touch with some of you in the room. She doesn't live here anymore. She lives in San Diego County. She was 9, so she is pushing 79 now. And she couldn't have been nicer. She said she doesn't have much memory of the event, actually, and she also says that as she grew through her teenage years, she would often tell people she was an only child, which infuriated her mother, which is understandable. She was very kind about me pursuing this book project, and she didn't have much memory of it, even though she was 9. And then the cousin Gus, who was 5, I found him, and he said they were playing hide and seek. And that maybe, he said, we'd lost track of her. He said, now you're asking me to remember something when I was 5. He said, maybe she sat on the edge of it and fell in. Or maybe she thought it was a hole and wanted to hide in there. Don't know. Yeah.
When was the high school built?
When was the high school built, Lauren?
First freshman class was 52, but it was Carver School before that.
Yeah, Carver. It was Carver.
And I don't know when, I think it was 30s or something.
Carver, yeah, Carver's there, brand spanking new, modernist architecture, very, people loved it. So Carver was right there. And then I got an email from a gentleman who I don't think is here this evening, today or yesterday, who said, as a San Marino High student, much later than the event, he remembers a sinkhole where the site of the well is. So they covered it up the night that she was taken away. They broke the casing. It's kind of a furious event. They crumpled it with bulldozers and covered it up. The irony is actually, if you see a photograph of it after they've done that, they've left a mound of dirt at the center of the well, where the well was, that looks everything like a grave. Yes?
You said the father said not to
Why did David Fiskus not want to have anyone down there? He knew the danger. I think he may have had a hunch that his daughter was lost. He knew the danger. He was a water guy. And he knew the danger. He knew how small that well casing was. A woman showed up at the scene with a skinny boy. And she said, "This is my boy. Put him down there." And they all said, "Nope, not doing that." Yes?
2 questions. When they put the casing down and then try to get over to where Kathy is, how did they get into where she was? And is there, the second question, is there any estimate of how long she was alive down there?
How do they do that operation, tunneling across to her well casing? And is there any estimate of how long she lived? For the first question, this is a really interesting bit of information for an historian of this region. A lot of the guys who show up to help are miners. When was the last time you met a miner here in Southern California? But a lot of them are miners. And I think they're out in Corona, Norco area. They show up and they know how to build mine shoring. So when they go across, there's a couple of the earth breaks in on them and there's some water. That delays the rescue. They shore it up with timber. We're talking about a space of 3 to 5 feet that separates their shaft from hers. They shore it up and eventually go in there. They have to cut open her well. It's beat up, it's rusty, it's old, but it's still holding. They have to cut it open. There's a big dispute that takes place on scene because at certain points, naive rescuers up top who don't have the real tough jobs literally lower down electrical tools to the watery portion of the down below, which infuriates the rescuers, and they send out for pneumatic tools. So pneumatic tools are using bits and saw blades and painstakingly cutting a window in her hole where they can get her, in her casing.
Did you interview Stan Chambers?
I did interview Stan Chambers. I met with Mr. Chambers and his family at his home. He remembered it very well. It made him a recognizable figure in news journalism. He didn't tell me anything that I hadn't already known about his eyewitness accounts as a newscaster. It's important, but I'm actually more interested in the rescuers about whom we know nothing, including many of you locals will know this. There's a famous off-road racer named Tommy Francis, who in the 50s was a very famous daredevil road racer in Mexico. He's one of the rescuers. He shows up on a motorcycle. He gets in a fight with Sheriff Eugene Biscaluz, who says, "You're too exhausted to go down there." Tommy curses at the sheriff and says, "Test me." And the sheriff pulls out a bullet from his bandolier and throws it at him. And Tommy Francis says, "I caught it like that," and said, I can't repeat it here, "Put me down that well." So,
when's your book coming out?
The book, it should come out before the end of this year. The event will be 70 years in April of 2019. The book should be out by Thanksgiving time. It's a little book, but it's filled with pictures, and it's filled with the attempt to make sense of really something that's horrible.
What was the estimate on how long she lived?
So the estimate on her lifespan inside there broaches or runs up against another mystery as cause of death. I don't think she's alive for more than about 2 hours. I also think she drowned. The cause of death is not drowning. The autopsy's lost. The official cause of death was asphyxiation. That she had gotten in a position like this and compressed her lungs and wasn't able to breathe any longer. I don't think so. In 1979, the family physician was interviewed, and the interviewer said, "She drowned, right?" And Dr. Hansen said, "Yes, she drowned." And then 2 minutes later, he said, "Wait a minute, did I say she drowned? She didn't drown. She asphyxiated." So there's a mystery there, and I think the mystery has mostly to do, I'll never know for sure, mostly to do with, I think, protecting the parents from the terror of their daughter alive and crying, and then slipping down below the water table. I think that's what that is. And the doctor was also at pains to say that the ropes that had been lowered down to her, which were not retrieved, they were not in a position to have strangled her. They said that didn't happen. Yeah.
What was the father's name? David H.?
David H. Fiscus, yes. I think probably a member of this club.
He was the president.
President of this club. A real pillar of the community.
1952.
Yeah, yeah. And they knocked their house, the house that they lived in is knocked down not that long after the event, and they move around the corner where you can't see the field. Yes, Mike.
The upper field where nobody can see it, they haven't thought about putting a plaque down there.
Well, the plaque really is out of place. The plaque is closer to their house than it is to the event. So the pump house that's there, which is atop another well, one could imagine a plaque there, or one could imagine a plaque somewhere in the football field, track, tennis court complex. I've talked to San Marino High kids. They know about the plaque. They say, oh, you're looking for what's up there. And I've asked them, do you know what that's about? No. But why would they? 70 years earlier. Yes, sir.
What happened to the other wells? Were they lower below ground?
So a number of the other wells are dug in the, so the Johnson wells early, although the Mission Fathers and the Mexican land grantees and the early Americans and other assorted foreigners do dig wells right there, and they hit the water table really quickly. Now you want to go below the water table, well below it, so you can keep drawing water off. Most of the wells around the Fiscus well, they're not around when she goes in. So they've been either capped or somehow pushed below grade. I don't really know, other than the pump house well. So that pump house is activated during the rescue attempt to try to lower the water table to protect the rescuers who are in the tunnel that's wet. So, and the other thing that's important, just as a historian of this region, these people, David Fiscus among them, they know water. They know how to dig a well. They know how to case a well. They know how to draw water off the water table. This region of the San Gabriel Valley is as agriculturally fertile as any place in California already by 1850 for good reason. They know how to use water, and there's a lot of water. There's a lot of surface water in Rubio Wash and Eaton Wash, etc. And then there's a lot of subterranean water in the Raymond Aquifer.
Where's her grave?
Her grave is in Chula Vista. Family grave, family plot. There's a plaque at the library, I think. Mike, is there a plaque at the library? There's a plaque at the library. Barbara Fiscus says that even now, when she signs a check with her Fiscus name, for reasons unknown to me, which isn't her married name, she'll sign a check and someone will say, oh, you're not. So it's still around. Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you.
Those of you that have been around the club know that
Wait, come over here so they can hear you.
Yeah, I guess I can do that.
Yeah.
Just very briefly, those of you who have been around the club for a while know that we do show our appreciation to our guest speakers with a little token of our appreciation, and so we'd like to present you this, and thank you very much.
Thank you
for a
Thank
great
you.
talk.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Just a quick reminder, our next meeting in February will be at the Huntington Library. The speaker will be the new president of the Huntington Library, Dr. Karen Lawrence. So it'll be an excellent meeting. and they're going to have a cocktail hour and a reception at 5:45. So it should be another excellent speaker. Along with, we want to thank Dr. Devereaux for a beautiful presentation.